Look at this, players. Is this side topspin or side underspin? The racket is completely vertical. Exactly, watching the racket angle is not reliable. Alright, let's begin with how to read the spin on a service return. I'll serve 2 left side spins. You tell me which one is side topspin. The first one. The second one. The first was topspin. You see, this is the problem with our judgment. Now, let's have Xiao Quail do 2 hook serves. The first one. The second one. Which one is the side topspin? The first was topspin. Honestly, when it comes to reading serves, you don't need to overcomplicate things. Let me explain the key point here. I've taught many methods, like watching for a flat or open racket face, but in a real match, your mind goes blank and you can't recall those details. Instead, just watch the server's forearm. The forearm will never lie to you. Using the elbow's height as a reference, if the forearm moves downwards, it's definitely side underspin. When the forearm moves forward, with little change in height, the serve is afloat or has light spin. If the forearm, whether for a left or right sidespin serve, starts moving upwards, then it's a side topspin serve. Now I'll serve one. You watch and determine if it's side topspin or side underspin. Correct, that was side underspin, because my forearm's direction was downwards. Watch closely. Any downward motion will impart underspin. It's guaranteed to have an underspin component. I'll serve another one, watch again. What kind of spin was on that ball? It was mostly side topspin, because the motion was forwards and upwards, right? You see, this method is incredibly accurate. Alright, Xiao Quail, serve one. If you use my method, you can definitely read it. What spin is this? That's right, side underspin. Referencing the elbow's height, any downward motion means it's side underspin. Now let's have Xiao Quail do a hook serve. Side topspin or side underspin, everyone? Correct. See how accurate that is? Okay, let's have Xiao Quail serve a standard left side spin. Everyone, watch carefully. Correct, side underspin. This is the most reliable method we've found. It has nothing to do with the racket angle. Some players can serve side underspin even with a vertical racket face, because as long as the force is directed downwards, it will have underspin. Look at this, players. Is this side topspin or side underspin? The racket is completely vertical. Exactly, watching the racket angle is not reliable. Let's have Xiao Quail push it, even with a vertical face. See? It's a clean push, because the ball still has an underspin component. Relying on racket angle is deceptive. Most amateur serves are side underspin dominant. Even when they think their racket is vertical, there's usually a slight downward angle or a scooping motion. Trust me. After teaching table tennis for 36 training camps, I can tell you that watching the forearm is the most accurate method. Things like changes in racket angle or contact point on the ball. I used to teach that too. But when you're on the other side of the table, at the moment of contact, your mind goes blank and you see nothing. The largest and most obvious target is the forearm. I always emphasize this in my in-person training camps, it's the clearest indicator. Besides, having a method to read the serve is always better than not judging at all and simply guessing. Watch, I'll serve one last one. Pay attention. Side topspin or side underspin? Most of you got it right. It was side topspin. Let me explain why some of you might have seen it as underspin. It's because you're looking at the start of my motion, which is low, but the contact itself is high. That upward motion makes it topspin. Watch this in slow motion. The problem is you're not capturing the exact moment of contact between the ball and the racket. You're watching what happens after the ball has left. Your observation is delayed, still focused on my follow-through. So the first key point is to lock your eyes on the moment the ball makes contact with the racket. After that instant, ignore all subsequent motions. Your focus must shift to the ball's trajectory. Why do some players use deceptive follow-throughs? It's to make you watch their entire motion, by which time the ball has already zipped past you. You have no time to read the ball's trajectory because you're still focused on their arm. The spin is determined the instant the ball leaves the racket. Anything I do after that has no effect on the ball. You must train your eyes to be sharp and pinpoint that moment of contact. After that, you track the ball's flight path. Is the arc high or low? Is it breaking left or right? For a small adjustment, I can use my hand; for a wider one, my center of gravity; for a big one, I must move my feet. But you can't assume every backhand return will come right to you. You must move to the ball, not wait for it. So remember, read the spin at the moment of contact, then immediately switch to tracking the ball's trajectory. Next, let's address the issue of misjudging the curve and missing the ball. This is another major challenge for amateur players. First, let's establish a principle: all left side spin serves will always break towards your left side. For the average amateur player, if the first bounce is here, the second bounce will be about here, a gap of about one hand width. A more advanced player, like myself serving short, might have the first bounce here, creating a gap of 2 or even 2.5 hand widths. But generally, based on our analysis of amateur serves, the distance between the first and second bounce is about 1 hand width. Conversely, all right side spin serves, like a hook or a backhand serve, will break to your right. So you need to anticipate this distance. Why do we miss the ball? It's because we fixate on the first bounce. For example, if the first bounce is here, and I aim for that spot, the ball will curve away and I'll miss it. Therefore, you cannot try to hit the ball at the peak of its bounce. Once you understand this principle, when receiving a left side spin, your hand and your body weight should be positioned more to your left. This applies even to serves down the middle; it will still break left. On the forehand side, it will curve into your body, which is also a break to the left. Second point, return side topspin on the rise. Return side underspin just after the peak. I'm referring to situations where you're having trouble. If you can return well, you can ignore this and attack at any point. For side topspin, don't hit it at the highest point. You must contact it earlier, on the rise. You need to be starting your stroke before the ball has a chance to curve significantly. If you are late, and the ball curves sharply, you'll likely hit it with the edge of your racket, generating no quality. Even if it goes over, your opponent will have an easy smash. The same logic applies to side underspin. If you can, step in and attack it on the rise. I can contact it early like this. Or, I can wait for it to drop, letting the ball curve and then looping it just as it begins to fall. Doesn't that solve the problem perfectly? Most amateur players try to hit the ball at its highest point. Against a very spinny serve, even I will miss sometimes, let alone amateur players. Next up is right side spin. This is typically a backhand serve, as good hook serves are rare. This is a common scenario: you try to loop it and miss. On the forehand side, you loop and it goes into the net. Receiving right side spin on the forehand is particularly difficult. It always creates a very awkward feeling. So, for a right side spin ball coming at you, we must know that its spin will carry it to the right. A right side spin serve is the perfect weapon against players who keep their arm tucked in close to their body. If their elbow is tucked, serve right side spin and they will struggle to return it. They lack an outside-in swing path. The timing for returning a right side spin serve is identical to the left side spin we just discussed: topspin on the rise, underspin just after the peak. But the challenge here is the swing path. You must use an outside-in motion. For example, to flick this, I must swing with an outer arc. The ball is breaking away from me. I can't just push forward, I have to wrap my racket around the ball, swinging inward. This applies to long balls too. Watch me loop. If you loop straight, it's very likely to go into the net. Instead, wrap around the ball as you loop. You can even hook your wrist slightly. This makes it much easier. When flicking a left side spin, we generally flick straight. To flick a right side spin, we have to scoop inwards with the racket. Otherwise, a heavy side spin will cause you to miss-hit, because the force of the spin kicks the ball outwards off your racket. So you must use an outside-in swing, directing your force inwards. Why do you make mistakes on service return? because your swing is too big. Now, take that big swing of yours and cut it in half. So the key point here is, the more difficult the serve is to return, the smaller your motion should be. This includes pushing. For example, with a short ball, the bigger your movement, the more errors you will make. This applies to all service returns. The motion must be compact, just a short snap. This is true for long balls as well. Your return stroke should be about 2/3 the size of your normal attacking loop. Shorten your backswing, and make the contact motion more compact. It's just a quick snap. This is especially crucial for underspin. The spinnier the ball, the smaller your motion must be to avoid being affected by the spin. A large swing leads to unfocused friction. Next time you face a heavy spin serve, just use a short, sharp motion. You won't make a mistake. Big, powerful swings are not for service returns. They are for smashing a high ball after your opponent's weak return. Service return requires a precise and cautious mindset and body posture. The motion should be small, the swing compact, with lots of friction. You must be meticulous in how you handle the spin. It is inherently a cautious part of the game, not a moment for wide-open swings. Watch, if I give her a very heavy underspin, her big loop fails because she doesn't have time to execute the full motion before the ball arrives. The solution is to concentrate all your action into that single moment of friction. See? What's the principle here? Let's say you only have 0.2 seconds. A full swing requires your waist, hips, legs, arm, forearm, wrist, and fingers. You can't complete that sequence in 0.2 seconds. But if you use that 0.2 seconds just for the brushing action, just for snapping your fingers forward, you can definitely lift the ball. The spinnier the ball, the faster it drops. If your brushing motion isn't concentrated into a fraction of a second, you will be beaten by the spin. Simply put, you might be doing the right action, but your timing is too slow. You haven't synchronized your friction with the ball's arrival, and that's why you make the error. Second, let's address the side topspin issue. Take a hook serve, for example. If your stroke is a full 10/10 motion, even if I don't use much power and I close my racket angle, why does it still go long? It's because your arc is too long. When returning any side topspin serve, you must stop your motion early. The same goes for the forehand. If you give me a forehand serve, don't use a big swing. Stop the motion early. And just like that, no more errors. This applies to short balls too, like flicks. The mistake is that you're applying too much forward force through the ball. Instead, during the flick, you must stop the motion abruptly. See? It lands on the table. The purpose of a side topspin serve is to make you hit the ball long. Every return against it must use compact power. If you just block it back passively, that's an indirect error, because your opponent will just attack your weak return. Stop your motion early, cut it in half. For a forehand, if I normally finish here, I now stop here. For a backhand, if I normally finish here, I now stop here. Let me demonstrate. If you stop the motion early on the backhand, I can still generate power and be more proactive. I can do it on my forehand too. If I stop the motion early, oops, that still went long. Let me stop it even earlier, and I can still generate power. For side topspin, small motion, and an early stop. You must remember this. Now for our third mystery, the spinnier the ball, the more friction we need. This rule applies only to looping. For pushing, the rule is, the spinnier the ball, the more your start and end motions must be identical. It has to be a steady, constant speed motion. For example, if you serve me a heavy underspin, the spinnier it is, the more I brush it when I loop. Let me demonstrate just hitting it. See? It goes straight into the net. But for pushing, it's the opposite. Against a very spinny ball, the more spin you try to add with your push, the more you'll be affected by the original spin. So, when you see your opponent adding heavy spin, including in a push rally, you cannot try to add more spin yourself. If you do, and your contact isn't perfect, the ball will dive straight into the net. So what's the solution for these balls? No extra finger or wrist action. Maintain a constant speed throughout the stroke. You can't just block it either, as that will also result in an error. The answer is to push forward with a steady, constant speed through the entire motion. Now, if your opponent serves a light spin or no spin ball, and you use that same steady push, the ball will pop up high. So what should I do then? In that case, you must proactively add your own friction. So, to keep your pushes on the table, if the serve is light spin, you add spin with your push. If the serve is heavy spin, you push with a steady, even motion. Now for any serve where you can't read the spin, this next one is a golden rule. If you can't read the spin, push it sideways. Pushing sideways effectively kills the ball's upward trajectory. You're not just pushing purely sideways, you instinctively know to push slightly down as well. This action helps keep the ball low and prevents it from popping up. For instance, what is the spin? Just push it sideways. If you can't read it, push it sideways. Even if it's a mild side topspin, pushing it sideways will still help lower the ball's arc. Now, if it's a pure topspin and you still can't see it, then that's a spin reading issue. We're talking about those ambiguous serves where the spin is unclear. This method can solve that problem completely. But looping is different. For looping, the more spin your opponent's ball has, the more you need to accelerate and brush it. For example, if she serves with 30 units of spin, your hand must generate 30 units of friction. If she serves with 80 units, your hand must generate 80 units of friction to counter it. I'm talking about force generated by friction, not by swinging your arm harder. Simply put, it's about using your fingers, not your upper arm, forearm, waist, or legs. That power doesn't translate to the ball in time. Why is service return so hard? Because of the speed. In that split second, you can only rely on the snap of your fingers at contact. If he's really going for it, stomping his foot for maximum power, then your friction needs to accelerate to match it.